One of the biggest challenges about developing a hardware workflow is about making sure you've got all the right parameters available to suit how you like to make music. There's loads of cool gear available these days, often with lots of functionality and a very compact footprint. But the problem is that each piece of gear is designed with its own workflow in mind that might not suit your way of making music. This is where the Launch Control XL comes in. In this video, I'll show you 5 ways to take control of your DAWless setup with a custom mode on the Launch Control XL. Let's go. Creating a custom MIDI setup completely from scratch can be a little bit daunting. So I'm going to show you how to load a pre-made template into the Launch Control XL that will control the circuit tracks as mixer. And we're going to use that as a starting point for a custom setup. So to load up the template, I go into Novation Components. So I'll click Manage Launch Control XL. What I'm going to do is choose Circuit Tracks Mixer, which is a template. But I'll click Edit, and I'm going to give it a custom name. Let's call it DYW Custom. We'll send it over to the Launch Control XL, and we'll put it in slot 1, like that. If I go into a mode selection here, you can see that I'm in custom mode 1, and now we're in the template. I've got synth level controls, external input controls, and then channels for the 4 drums. We've got pan, reverb send, and delay send. Let's see what it's like to have hands-on control of everything in the circuit tracks. Nice. So you can see even with the default mapping, I get a lot of hands-on control, and I can really work the circuit tracks for patterns and notes while I'm controlling the mixer from the Launch Control XL. So now that I've got my basic custom mode set up and I can control the circuit tracks as mixer, I'm going to start to customize it and put the synth cutoff on these 2 knobs so that I can tweak it on the fly with easy access. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at the Circuit Tracks Programmer's Guide. Now this is a really detailed document that tells me all of the controls in the circuit tracks that can be accessed via MIDI. It's really deep, you can do a lot. As you can see, to get at the filter frequency for the 2 different synths, I have to switch pages. I want them on these knobs so I can access them both at the same time. So if I look at this table here, I can see that macro knob 5, aka the filter knob, is CC84. So I'm going to go back into Components, and I'm going to select these 2 knobs. So this is Mixer Pan 1 currently. Let's call that S1 filter, and we'll call this one S2 filter. These are currently set to the CCs for the pan, and I want to change that. So you can see that I've selected CC84 for those 2 knobs, but I think what I want to talk about quickly is MIDI channels. So in the circuit tracks, it has a default MIDI channel assignment. The first 4 tracks, so synth 1 and 2 and MIDI 1 and 2, are MIDI channels 1, 2, 3, and 4. All the drums are on channel 10, that's a really common way to do drums, and then all of the main controls for the mixer are on channel 16. So for synth 1, I want channel 1, and for synth 2, I want channel 2 like that. Let's roll it down and see what that's like. So now that I've replaced the pan controls on the first 2 channels with the synth filter cutoffs, I can think about how I'd like to customize this template further to give me control over other parameters. So as part of my custom setup, I'm going to use the second MIDI output on the Launch Control XL to control some external hardware while I'm also controlling the circuit tracks as mixer. So I'm using a mono Norns by default, in the circuit tracks mixer template that we started from, these two controls control the left and right audio inputs on the circuit. These controls are the panning, reverb, and delay sends. I'm going to replace a lot of these mappings with MIDI CCs that don't go to the tracks anymore, but are understood by this device, and I can control things like filter cutoff and stereo volume, while still having access to the mixer controls for reverb and delay, which is really fun. So we're going to go into components, and we'll have a look at what we want to do here. I'm going to leave these two knobs alone so that I can still control reverb and delay for the left channel. All of these other ones I'm going to change so that I can use them to control the mono norms. Now this particular box has MIDI learning in it, so it doesn't matter what CCs I program in components, I can just learn them here. If you're using other hardware that expects specific CCs on specific channels, you'll need to just read the documentation so you know what numbers to put in here. So at the moment, these are all set to values already, and you'll see that they're sending on channel 16. That's because that's the MIDI channel that the circuit tracks listens to for the mixer controls. So the easiest thing to do to disconnect them is just to leave them as they are and go through and set them all to a different channel that the circuit tracks isn't listening to. I'm going to use channel 15 here. Another nice thing that we can do is we can change the color of these so that they no longer are a color that's related to the circuit tracks. I'm going to use the yellow because that matches the interface on here, and it's just going to remind me that those knobs are doing something a bit different. The nice thing about this is I can go into components and name them before I even get them to control this. This little script I'm using is called Moonraker. It's a bit of a random percussion machine. It's kind of some spiciness that I throw in over the top of what the tracks is doing. So I'm going to call this first fader Moonraker volume, and I'm going to map that to the stereo main volume of the norms. This one is going to be Moonraker filter, so this fader here will be a filter cutoff. And then I'm going to go through and map these other ones to a few parameters, and I'll come back once I've done that. Okay, so I've finished my template and sent it over. You'll see that all of these knobs are now yellow. And if I move these controls, you'll see that they're named. In the norms, it's got MIDI learning, as you can see, so I just push learn, move the fader I want, and now I'm controlling the output level in stereo. Let's see what kind of weird noises we can make with this thing and add it into the mixer controls of the circuit tracks. It's pretty wild, that thing, but it's a nice bit of spice to add to the tune. So you can see that with some simple changes to a Launch Control XL template, I was really easily able to create a hybrid setup that's controlling two different pieces of gear at the same time, and letting me control the circuit tracks mixer while also sending MIDI over to the norms to filter and control those percussion sounds. Changing the decay of drum sounds while a pattern is playing is a great way to get a lot of variation. I'm going to customize my Launch Control XL template so that I have access to the decay of all four of the circuit tracks' drum decay times at the same time. So for this, again, I'm going to go back to the programmer's guide for the circuit tracks. Now the drums are a little bit different than some of the other controls because they are all on channel 10. So I'm going to have to write down a few different CC numbers and remember what I'm doing. I'm going to use a trusty post-it note for this. So drum 1 decay is CC 15. That's pretty easy. Drum 2 decay is CC 40. Drum 3 decay is 47. And drum 4 decay is 57. I don't need to worry about MIDI channel or anything because all of the drums are on channel 10. So we'll go into components. And I'll grab these controls here, which I want to be my drum decay. So let's name them D1 decay. Number 1 is 15, so we'll punch that in. We're going to call this one D2 decay. That's number 40, so we'll punch that in. This is D3 decay, which is 47. Change that one to 47 like so. And the last one is D4 decay. And that is on MIDI CC 57. Okay, so let's see what it's like to have real-time control of the decay of all 4 of the drum parts without having to switch pages. I've already dialed all the decay times right back. Let's have a listen. So I'm going to start turning up the decay for the hi-hat. Yeah, so that's pretty fun. So by mapping the decay of all 4 of the drum sounds onto the Launch Control XL here, I'm able to really get a lot of life out of one pattern on the circuit, but I've also got my other hand spare for changing patterns, adding notes, and making other changes on the fly. So encoders and faders are really great for changing parameters on the fly, but sometimes you want to really quickly jump between a couple of very specific settings. I'm going to show you how to customize the Launch Control XL's buttons to control continuous parameters on another device. Okay, so we're going to go into components and we're going to look at these 4 buttons here at the bottom. And we're going to make these into momentary effect punch buttons. So CC90 on channel 16 is the reverb send for the kick drum. I can leave that encoder as it is, and I can also send this message from this button. So I'll come down here, I'll go to control change. I need to set it to 90. Let's call this K verb punch. We want it to go, let's not go to full range when we push it, maybe just 100. And then when it's off, we want 0. It is on channel 16 because we're talking about controlling the mixer. Because the reverb knob is white, I'm going to make this button white as well, just so that they match up. And we'll do the same thing for the snare drum. So that is CC106. It's already on channel 16 because it was previously configured. We want the on value to be 100, the off value to be 0, and we want it to be momentary like that. We want it to be white. Okay, let's call that S verb punch. Cool. Now, so for the last 2 channels, this is usually my hi-hats and my percussion. So for these 2, I've made these buttons control the reverb send. For the hi-hats and the percussion, I want them to control the delay send. So we'll just quickly go in and enable that one. We'll make it a control change. We will call it hat dub punch, like that. So that's CC115. On value, let's go for 100 again. It's momentary, it's on channel 16. And this one will make it orange. And this one is perk dub, so percussion dub punch. So we'll go to control change. We want CC116 like that. We want the on value to be 100, the off value to be 0. We want the behavior to be momentary, and we want it on channel 16. Okay, so let's see what that sounds like. So you can see that by mapping a continuous control to a button, I was able to really quickly control lots of things very fast in the mixer. I was punching in delay and reverb very quickly across all 4 drum tracks and not having to worry that when I let go, it would go back to its 0 or default value. You can extend this concept. You could introduce additional effects punch-in buttons for the synthesizer and external inputs. You could also do things like store specific filter values under the buttons so that you can punch a synth into a specific filter sound. Using buttons to send continuous control is a really cool way to quickly and accurately control parameters in your gear. Hopefully that gives you some ideas about how you could use a custom mode in the Launch Control XL to really bring your hardware setup to life and create your own custom mappings that suit your musical workflow. Thanks for listening.